Well, I actually began my involvement with Somalia when I was doing my master's thesis at George Washington University in 1963. Wrote it on the Pan-Somali movement. Then I was the State Department desk officer for Somalia in the 1969 to 71 period. Was the U.S. coordinator for Somalia during the international intervention in 1993, and then Director of East African Affairs in the State Department from 93 to 96, where I had responsibility for Somalia. And then after that, Ambassador to Ethiopia, where I still followed developments in Somalia closely. I was referring at that point particularly to the counterterrorism policy that's being used in the Horn of Africa generally. I was special with particular reference to Somalia, and was saying that in my view it's not working, and I don't believe it can work so long as it is focused primarily on essentially catching bad guys or capturing bad guys or in a couple of cases even killing them. That's not the long-term solution to dealing with the problems of terrorism in the Horn of Africa. It's far more important to deal with the root causes of terrorism, which means encouraging local governments and all governments in the region to deal with the issues of social and economic inequality, political marginalization when you have minority groups, for example, a Muslim minority in Kenya, when you have high levels of poverty, when you have enormous problems with corruption, both at the governmental level and outside government, when there are problems of governance generally in the region. All of these issues have to be dealt with. And the international community can help in a number of them. Certainly it can help reduce poverty in the region. But it's up to local governments to deal with issues like corruption and poor governance. And until that happens, you're not going to remove the sort of the raison d'etre, the reason for there being a sympathy with groups that use terrorist tactics for their own purposes, and usually for what I call domestic terrorism, not international terrorism, where they're trying to overthrow the local government or they're trying to create some kind of a change in the system. Relatively few of the terrorist acts in the Horn of Africa are aimed at the international community. A few are, but most are not. Most are aimed at local indigenous people. And keep in mind that one of those who ultimately died, and I don't know the precise circumstances of what happened to him, but al-Sudani, who is one of the three and is no longer alive, did apparently get killed in Somalia. And this is according to the Al-Shabaab, one of the Al-Shabaab leaders announced this in a video that came out a month or so ago. He didn't announce the specifics as to how he died. The implication was it was in a battle inside Somalia, possibly with the Ethiopians. The other two, you're quite right, are not at the moment in Somalia. They have been in and out over time. I mean, this goes all the way back to 1998 when they were involved in the bombings of the U.S. Embassy. And it is known that they have been in and out and in and out. But one of them is probably in Tanzania now, but no one knows where in Tanzania. So that's one reason you don't bomb. If you don't have any idea where the person is, you don't carpet bomb a country looking for one person. And the other person, Nabhan, I don't know where he is, and I don't know whether the United States government knows where he is, but very possibly he's in Kenya. Fazul was he was actually in Malindi, which is north of Mombasa, and the Kenyan authorities tried to capture him a month or so ago, and he left the house an hour or two before they arrived. And the last I heard, there was a report that he was in Tanzania. But he's escaped before. This isn't the first time. But I go back to my basic criticism of U.S. policy, which was so focused on dealing with the issue of terrorism that it has blinded them to other issues, to other problems that, in my view, are frankly far more important and require much more attention in dealing with than just trying to catch bad guys, which the sanctioning of the Ethiopian force into Somalia was effectively a desire by the United States to catch bad guys, if you will. And that's not the solution to the problem. The solution to the problem is a political settlement among Somalis themselves to get their country back in order. And this is not the way to go about it, in my view. I think those who follow the issue closely keep in mind there are no Americans inside Somalia now, and as a result, the knowledge of what is happening on the ground, even for myself, I haven't been in Somalia, in Mogadishu, since 1996, so I'm very out of date in terms of what Somalis in Somalia are thinking. Now, I talk with a lot of Somalis in the diaspora, some of whom visit Somalia regularly and recently, so I have some idea what the thinking is. But the United States doesn't have really good information in terms of Somalis living in Somalia. But I think there is a general understanding that the situation has not gone well, that there is more hostility towards the American position, and that particularly the attacks, the aerial attacks in Somalia, there have been 5 of them dating back to the beginning of 2007, that these have caused a backlash, and I think there is an understanding of that. But some of the decision makers are not giving sufficient account to that reaction, and as I say, they're too focused on just catching bad guys. Now, if it's clear that the Djibouti process is working and that at least the 2 principal groups have reached an agreement and seem to be serious about implementing the agreement, I think you will see surprising international support for it, because at that point, even though the overall priority of American policy will still be on the international financial crisis in Iraq and Afghanistan and all of that, we have different layers in the U.S. government. And even though the highest layer may not be engaging itself with Somalia or the Djibouti process, further down into the government, the mid-levels, they will be engaged. And at that level, they can ensure that the right decisions are made to fully support such an agreement if it looks like there is an agreement being reached. So I'm not too concerned about the involvement of at least the United States in supporting such an agreement if one is reached. I think it will be supported. But so long as there is no agreement, there will be very little interest by the U.S. government, in my view. Basically a continuation of what's going on right now, a continuation of very many bad things. And that's not good for anyone, but most of all, it's worst for Somalis, because they're suffering more than anyone. Now, the piracy thing it's unfortunate, but it's a big sideshow. Piracy is not the issue. These are Somali entrepreneurs that's being overly generous to them. They're hooligans, basically, but they're essentially businessmen who have found a way to make money by kidnapping people and extracting ransom. They have nothing to do with terrorism. They have nothing to do with international politics. They're just out there making money, and this is the only way they know how to do it. And they're effectively thieves. I mean, that's what they've turned themselves into. But it's a sideshow. It has little to do with a political settlement in Somalia. I think a political settlement would help end their activities, because then local Somali authorities could deal with them on the ground in whatever harbors they're operating out of in Somalia. But you can't expect a bunch of international ships in the waters of the Indian Ocean to really deal with a problem. Many of them will just escape back to shore and wait for another day. The Somalis themselves have to end that problem, and I think they can. Mm-hmm. The violation of fishing rights in Somali waters has been going on for decades. This is nothing new. I'm not that aware of the toxic waste dumping. I mean, I I don't doubt that it's happened, but I just personally don't know about it. But I know for a fact that the violation of the waters, of Somali waters, has been going on. Of course, some of that has been going on in concert with Somalis on the shore who, write personal agreements or private agreements or arrangements with some of these fishermen who are operating offshore, and they're probably getting a little cut of money out of it. So I think there's some Somali involvement in that too. But that doesn't mean that it's right. That doesn't mean that the international community shouldn't do more to stop it. But I've actually had discussions with groups in the United States, both in the government and out of the government, who are concerned about it and who would like to see that stopped. And believe that the UN needs to make more of an effort to prevent that kind of activity. You probably know more about which countries are engaged in it than I do. I'd be surprised if American ships or American fishermen are involved in it, but I don't know for a fact if that's true or not.
Yeah.